12 miles west of Wilson is the Niagara Bar, where the Niagara River flows into Lake Ontario. It's the perfect storm of nutrient-rich water, which attracts schools of bait fish and big salmon. And they're here for one reason: to pack on the pounds. You won't find a higher concentration of kings in the Great Lakes than right here, right now. The fishing can be challenging. Unpredictable currents can throw off your presentation. My clients expect me to put fish in the boat. Knowing the speed and temperature at depth is always important, but here it's imperative. If you don't have a fish hawk, you're dead in the water. Now, Fishhawk is charging ahead. The new Lithium series incorporates 4 decades of experience with the lithium power anglers expect in modern electronics. The maintenance-free probe is 40% smaller and has an internal lithium polymer battery that provides a weekend's worth of fishing on a single charge. Wireless smart charging recharges the probe in minutes. Optional Bluetooth communication and probe depth are also available. I wouldn't dream of fishing without a Fishhawk. And now with the new Lithium series, Fishhawk electronics are better than ever.
Good afternoon. We are on the floor of the Great Niagara Fishing Expo, this time for the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast Roadshow. Chris Larson, along with Trevor Sumption. Welcome to the show.
Man, this is fun. We're here again.
We put a ton of time and planning into these things, and
actually, you put a lot of time and planning into these things.
I do most of it.
Yes.
You do a lot of it, and it always feels like you're months away, and then all of a sudden you're here. So this is pretty cool. The show is already really busy, so it's good to see our community coming out and doing some shopping. We've got kind of lure sellers and retailers all around us, and people seem to be really excited about the coming season, probably because we don't have a lot of ice out there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be here before we know it. I think you hit the key word, and that's community. So we were just having this conversation with somebody here at the show, and like, we don't do shows anymore. I mean, we do very few consumer shows. Mm-hmm. This is really the only one we do, and it's a little bit different, obviously, with with the setup we do here with the road show. But this one's so unique because like, this is our people.
Yeah.
This is our crowd. Everybody's here to learn. Everybody's here to share. So this is just a really unique show, and after doing shows for like 35 years. They're not my favorite thing to do, but this is one that I actually look forward to.
Yep.
Because again, this is our crowd, this is our people, and everybody's super friendly, and it's just a fun place to be.
Yeah, it's kind of like homecoming. It's like you go there and then see all your friends that you've seen for a while, and it's good to say hi to everybody. And
Niagara Falls in February is kind of the end of the road, so you need a reason to be here, and this show is a good reason to do that.
Yeah, it is fun. And Shane Rubianis came by a little bit earlier, and he's like he said, these are our people. Like, when we get in here, this room is full of our salmon people. But so we're gonna have you for the first 20 minutes, and then we've got Captain Dan Keating coming on. But of course, with you being here and with Fishhawk Electronics launching new product, and we've done a few shows on this, but it still feels like we're getting a lot of questions. I think people are kind of coming back into this open water fishing, these types of things kind of at their own speed. Some people were thinking about it back in November when we released the product. Some people were thinking about it in December when we were talking about it again. But now we're in mid to late February, and I think people are really coming at it right now and wanting to talk some fishing. So let's talk about the new product, the new Fishhawk Electronics Lithium.
Well, let's do that. Can I do a shout out first?
Yes.
I do need to do a shout out to my wife.
Okay.
Because without her, this company would not exist.
Yep.
And this is actually our 24th wedding anniversary today. So I've been gone for, I'm pretty sure 20 or 22 of those anniversaries, the day, whatever. But, so yeah, shout out to my wife. So,
Happy anniversary to you and to Jody. And,
thank you.
Yeah, it's great that she allows you to get out of here. It was kind of funny because we flew out on Valentine's Day to come to Niagara, so both of our wives have to be.
Yeah, I had a romantic dinner with you last night.
So. That was high class.
Yeah, high class. So, anyways, yeah. So let's talk about. Should we talk about the lithium series?
Yes,
let's do that.
Let's talk about the lithium series.
Yeah, it's you mentioned that we're still getting the questions and we feel like we've answered them. I think a big part of that is the X4 series. It's been since 2009 when we introduced that, so it's been a long time. So people were obviously very, very familiar with that product. Where obviously anytime you do something new, there's some more training that has to happen with that. The good thing is, and the super simple answer is they're all compatible, and that's, I think, the number one question. So for any customers out there that have the X4 system, yes, the new probe works with your existing system, just like the new display works with your system, the new transducer, the power cord, all the pieces are interchangeable. So there's nothing, you can kind of do this. However, if you think that this is the year that maybe you want to upgrade, you can do that all at once, or you can do it one piece at a time because everything is compatible. So that's by far and away the number one, asked question. The probe itself is the piece that, right away when you look at this, that this is different, right? It's 40% smaller than the original one, and that obviously catches your eye right away. Beyond the size and the positive impact that has with less blowback, goes through the water truer, meaning it doesn't wobble. It goes through the water very, very straight. Doesn't cause any extra drag on your cable. Beyond those really obvious things, people ask, why would I upgrade? And it's just a performance difference. Taking the maintenance out of it, of having to change batteries, doing that, it just makes it very, very easy to not have to think about those things. And it wasn't like a big deal with the X4 probes, but it was definitely something that if you ignored your batteries, eventually that was going to catch up to you. So you're going to get corrosion in there. You're going to, it's going to create some kind of a maintenance issue. And they, we designed it, you could replace those things, whatever, but this just eliminates that.
Yeah, completely sealed system. Something that we were saying for years to people is make sure you unscrew your probe when you're done fishing.
Yeah.
And now you don't have to worry about that with this. Of course, the question that everybody asks when we talk about a full lithium battery is, how many charges can I get? And how long does it last in a charge?
Yeah, so as far as how many charges, it's thousands of cycles before the battery starts to degrade at all. And even if the battery does degrade, you're probably not going to know the difference as an angler. So, the same batteries, the same battery technology that we all have in our cell phones, that has trickled down now into things like fishhawk probes, right? So this is not, new technology. This is something that's, well proven out. And so you've got thousands of cycles, thousands of charging cycles. And in addition to that, you've got extremely long battery life. A gentleman just stopped by as we were getting ready to go on. And he asked about cold water. How long does it last in cold water? Answer is a long, long time. So our initial design goal was to provide a weekend's worth of fishing on a single charge, and we've far exceeded that. So we're hearing, we've seen as many, more than 70 hours. We've seen 50 hours, and when we say 70 or 50, that's continuous fishing time. That's the probe in the water for 70 hours. And as we kind of explained to that gentleman a few minutes ago, we would rather under promise and over deliver on that than the other way around. So, charge life is, as far as runtime goes, you're really that's not going to be an issue. And that being said too, as far as charging time goes, from an absolute dead battery, you're going to charge it for about 2 hours and you'll be at full strength. But even if you would, for some reason, run out of juice out in the lake, you can drop it on the charger for 20 minutes, and that's going to get you at least the end of the day and probably the rest of the weekend. So it's pretty efficient in the power department.
Yeah, and so we've got 3 different models of the lithium series, and kind of walk the audience through how those align
Sure.
with our old model.
Yeah, I'll so I got the displays out here. So with as far as comparing them to the X4 series or the X2, so we've got 3 models. There's the multi, and there's the pro, and there's the ultra. And the multi, it's called the multi because we really designed it for multi-species boats. So maybe it's like the one next to us that nobody can see here, but it's the boat that maybe I'm walleye fishing on Lake Erie in the spring and I'm jigging or something and I don't need to have my fish hawk or my trolling gear on. That multi-system is easily removed from the boat. And that system is available with 2 transducer options. So you can either get it with the slip deucer, which is the one that you can put on like on any line really. So it could be a downrigger cable or it could be just a short rod and reel with a weight to get your probe down. It's available with either the slip deucer, or we also made it available with a transom mount transducer now.
That's a new thing.
That's a new thing for this year is the transom mount option, because people were doing that anyways. People were, we would see it, they would order an X2 and then they would also order a transducer. Well, it's like you don't need 2 transducers necessarily. So we give people the option now to order that, with the transducer of their choice. So that's the multi. The big difference in the multi as far as the data goes, the information, is the display itself. So the multi uses, that's a 3.5-inch display, so 3.5-inch diagonal display, versus the pro and the ultras have the 5.5-inch display. So it's a bigger display in the other models, but the multi, it gives you just the 2 readouts. So it's just giving you your probe information. It's giving you probe temp and probe speed. That's what the multi gives you as far as information goes. Whereas the pro is going to be really more like the X4 was. So you're getting your surface temp, surface speed, probe temp, probe speed, and the ultra would be the kin to the X4D or the Bluetooth, which gives you surface temp, surface speed, down temp, down speed, and the probe depth. That's the extra piece of information that you get out of the ultra, and the ultra is also the one that has the Bluetooth functionality. So that's the difference between the 3.
So if you want to get that data on your Humminbird, or you want to get that data on your Canon Optimum downriggers, or
Yes.
I know there's some guys that may just put it on their phone or what have you, just to get it around somewhere.
I'm gonna jinx this here, but I see the comment from Vermont Fishing Adventures.
Yeah.
Audio and video quality are great this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Praise the Lord, because that was something we struggled with last year because of bandwidth and all kinds of issues. So we're gonna knock on wood here gingerly and hope that continues. So.
Yeah. So thanks to Joe Yeager and the crew here for getting us set up with some better internet this year, and we upgraded some equipment too to try to fix some of those things. But like I said in the email that we sent out a couple days ago, it's still fingers crossed every time we push the button here to go live. So we hope to bring you everything we can and hope everything works out great. But everything is always still fingers crossed.
If you want to see Chris Larson's blood pressure go up, just throw in a bad connector or 2, and
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So let's talk about the display. You alluded to it a little bit, but it is a larger and an upgraded display that you're going to get with the new
So the display does the same thing. So the X4 display, the X4D display, it really looks the same as far as the digits and everything else. The LCD inside is the same display. It's just we really upgraded the case. So it's got a glass face on it. It's actually very similar to the original X2 display or the multi display. So we went to a keypad versus the membrane switch. The keypads are much more reliable over time, much more durable that way. That was something that we wanted to eliminate. It has the glass face. They have a glass face on it, so it's going to be impervious to things like bug spray and sunscreen and scratching. And if you're a cut bait fisherman and you happen to get some herring oil on the screen, it's easy to wipe that off and it comes off perfectly clean. Also, it looks a lot better with your other electronics. So it's going to look more in line with your Garmin or your Humminbird or your Simrad or Lowrance or Ray or whatever brand you have. It looks like another piece of electronics. So if you're putting together a helm and you want to just maintain that aesthetic, it does a better job of that. And that's important to some people, not as important to others. But then I would say the biggest thing is the glass doesn't scratch, so that's going to wear well over time. And it also lets us do an IP rating as far as our waterproofing, dustproofing, all that kind of stuff. So we could, just a more weather durable display as well. So,
yeah. So you talk about durability there with the display, but there's something else, durability with the probe as well. I think that people will like with just how you change that up a little bit and redesign that.
Yeah, that's the maintenance part of it. I mean, it's, you're never inside the probe. I mean, you're never worrying about an O-ring, or you're never worrying about a cap, or you're never worrying about a battery pack. I mean, all those things are gone. And, it's still best practice. Like when you're trailering your boat, it's still best practice to take your downrigger off the, take your probe off the downrigger, not the other way around. Right?
Yeah.
So it's still best practice to take your probe off of the downrigger cable. But we actually, all the testers, the 35 folks that we had out testing for us last summer, we actually encouraged them to leave it on. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can break these things or whatever, because we see it. I mean, it's, we go to any harbor along the Great Lakes. I mean, we see the fish hawk probes, hanging on the downriggers, and like I say, best practice not to do that, but we know it happens. So that was all part of this design. Is it's like, okay, this is how people are using them. How can we address that? So
the temperature sensor though.
I'm sorry. You were talking about temp. Yeah, the temp sensors actually come out the back.
Yeah.
So that was something. The X4 probes, the old 840 probes, all that stuff came out the front. So what would happen sometimes, especially boats that have swim platforms, guys would raise it up. If you have booms that pick up, like you did on the Big John downriggers, some Scotties have that, where you've got the booms that pick up, or even on a Canon, like a Retro Ease type setup. If you, crack the probe into a swim platform or something, you could, it's possible to damage those thermistors. So we did that. Yeah, we stuck those out the back now. So, we don't have to worry about those, really hitting. So.
Well, we've got a few minutes here before we're going to bring on Captain Dan Keating. Anything else you wanted to bring up before we go to Captain Dan?
What did I miss? Anything?
I think we really hit everything when it comes to the product. I think the big thing, though, to talk about is this product, and we alluded to a little bit how things work together, but, it's the same transducer. So it's the same cable. So if you're going to add this to your boat, you don't have to run any new cable. The power cable is the exact same as well.
Right.
So it really would be, if you wanted to upgrade the whole system, pretty much plug and play.
It's plug and
you
play,
already have it set up in your boat. So you don't have to go through a whole bunch of hoops and run new cables and wires and everything. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah, that's annoying to me too. Like when I re-rig electronics, I don't like to rerun transducers and all that kind of stuff. And I know every other company in the world makes you do that, but I tried to avoid that, and I think people appreciate it.
The other thing we want to bring up, we are going to do a little giveaway here at the show, and we'll do this for this 2-hour segment again later today. Go ahead and put in the comments #Fishhawk Electronics. And at the end of the show here, we will draw for just a swag package, some stickers, maybe a hat or shirt or something.
I forgot this. This is new. I just got these done yesterday. So This is the new the hard cases for the new probes. So those are soon to be available on the site as well. So you got your charger, the cord, and probe in there. So that was something that right away people were asking for that. So those are here now. So
very good. Go ahead and put in the comments #Fishhawk Electronics. We'll draw for that at the end of the show. But I see in the green room right now, we're going to put our headphones on so we can hear him talk, is Captain Dan Keating. Let's bring him up. Captain Dan, how are you?
Good. Hey, guys. How you doing?
How are you, Dan?
We are doing great. It's fun to be here on the show floor and see everybody. And shake everyone's hands, and I think we even handed out a few hugs here today too. So
Good.
that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
How are things in your neck of the woods?
They were better last week because I was fishing in the Keys, but no, they're good.
So,
That-
Captain
They're good.
Dan,
We're back up north.
yeah, back up north, and you're in northern Illinois, right near Lake Michigan, correct?
Yeah, northern Illinois, right by near Chicago. Yeah.
So what do you see going on there this year with, of course, the big news is it's been a warm weather. I know or a warm winter. I know you were in the Keys, but just even in your neck of the woods this year, it's been unseasonably warm. And what do you kind of see? How do you see that playing out once we start fishing?
We're going to pay for it. I'm sure our spring's going to be. I'm kidding. Chicago.
No,
You always pay for the breaks.
I'm a believer in karma, and I think you could be right.
So I started fishing in 1972 with my dad, started chartering full time in 1981, 82, kind of. Yeah, 82. And it seems like the warmer winters, they're good for the alewives. And the fish seem to be more spread out. My experience and opinion is that the cohos aren't all jammed into the bottom of Lake Michigan, but they're going to be spread out. There'll still be a pile of cohos in the bottom of the lake. And my good friend Carl Stefanski told me that they are clobbering cohos in Indiana. But I think you're going to see the cohos immediately in places like Waukegan, Chicago, maybe Racine, Kenosha. So they'll be spread out. I think it's good for the alewives. The young of the year alewives, the hard winters kill them. So I think for the forage base, a warm winter is going to be a good thing. So.
Yeah, we flew over the lakes yesterday, from Minneapolis, to here to Buffalo, and yeah, it's just kind of crazy because there was zero ice to be seen, and it was a clear day, so we're fly over Lake Michigan, fly over Lake Erie, and it's fishable, I can tell you that. So
yeah. The bad thing is, you get the ice, it kind of protects the shoreline when you get the big winds from getting beat up, but cloudy water warms up faster too. And a lot of times, at least the spring fish, the browns and the cohos are a lot easier to catch if there's some color to the water.
That's interesting.
What do you think that this is going to do? I know that in your neck of the woods, coho are kind of the first target species, but do you think that this will have any effect or maybe change the timeline at all, fishing for kings out of Lake Michigan, in northern Illinois and southern Michigan?
So yeah, the challenge for guys over on this side of the lake in the spring is to ignore the cohos and actually try for the kings, and a lot of people don't do that. And I think the kings migrate differently in Lake Michigan with all the natural fish. It seems like the spring fishing is just so much better on the Michigan side. And I know last year, and the Michigan guys could tell you better than me, but the kings were more spread out. It wasn't like they all started out off Michigan City, St. Joe, and then swam up the shore in a big school. They were spread all along that shoreline, and it was a long, there were a lot of ports that had really solid fishing. My guess is that as the king population improves, I think the fishing in the spring for kings on the western side of Lake Michigan is going to get better. Guys just need to go out and try for them. And it's always been my experience that the spring kings on this side of the lake tend to be in deeper water versus if you're in Michigan, they're not always as far out. And you do have a lot of bigger rivers on that side that are dumping nutrients and warm water in versus the west side of the lake. So I think the opportunities will be there. And, the steelhead is a mystery fish. Every year they're kind of up and down and you don't know what to expect. But the steelhead's another spring fish that could give guys a lot of action if they try for them.
You want to talk about that a little bit? People are they're focused on chasing the salmon. If they want to go after steelhead, how should they change their program? What should they be doing to go after some of those steelhead as a bonus fish?
So the steelhead is obviously, way more random than the other fish, but they do tend to favor offshore water. A lot of times you'll find them deeper than the cohos. So in the springtime, a lot of times you just have to go past the cohos and get out on the temperature breaks and, find the breaks. For me, the 42 to 44 degree break on the surface, horizontal break has always been a good break. The 39 degree break is a good break. But a lot of times just hitting those breaks and targeting the fish with a mix of clean spoons, possibly some body baits, that sort of thing. And then the coho flies, and then but the Dodgers do catch them, but the bent metal flashers actually typically work better. I know Dreamweaver makes one, Alderton Flasher makes a small one, whether it's an orange one or red one or yellow one. But part of it is just hunting, just covering ground and finding those pockets of steelhead out there.
And you're starting that on the surface always, Dan? I mean, that's where you're starting out to look there?
It's typically the top couple feet of water, especially in the springtime. By springtime, we're talking April, May, possibly early June as you climb, further north in the lake, and depending on how fast it warms up. But there are times where if you put a segmented lead core, like a 3, 4, 5 color lead inside some mono boards with a spoon, that may be where the steelhead are at. But, they have great eyesight too. So they'll find it.
And probably a silly question, but we're going to start with orange, or?
Orange is, it seems like for steelhead, the oranges and reds, as far as spoons go, I like purple and black spoons. The super slim Bloody Death is just always on a bright sunny day that will catch steelhead if they're around. And then with the tinsel flies, whether typically it's like the 2-inch slider, the slider fly size. The peanuts do work, but it's more of your blues, black, blue, purple, more of the bright colors,
Switching gears a little bit. So you just got back from the Keys, but I know you spend a lot of time in the winter with your schools. That's kind of full swing now, right?
Yeah. That was just a treat for me to go spend a long week with some friends hanging out, catching fish. Down there, trying to straighten my buddies out down there. So if they're listening,
you were with McGee, right?
I was with Greg. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good luck on that mission. But yeah,
Greg's a lot of fun, and I got to use your new probe last summer. With
Greg
on his boat, and he saw me taking pictures of, and he's like, "Dan, you can't show those to anybody yet."
Yeah. He's probably one of the few people that actually listen to instructions. So I'm impressed. So.
No, Greg's good with the whole current and the temperature thing. He's the guy to give. Yeah. He's the guy to give it to test out.
Right. No, he's definitely a good hand for product testing for sure.
Yeah. But no, schools. We were in Green Bay before I went down there. We were at Lake Michigan Angler. A real mixed bag in the people attending. There's people who are always there that you look at them and you go, man, you could be teaching this school. Why are you here? And then this year, there's been a surprising amount of people who are really, really green. I mean, one of the schools, we had 4 different little groups of people that had just bought boats. I mean, they literally had just bought a boat and were just rigging it and starting out from scratch. A lot of multi-species fishermen, and then obviously your hardcore salmon crowd. And then, not this weekend, I'm actually at a soccer tournament with our youngest daughter in Missouri, but the following weekend, we're going to be at Captain Chuck's in Leadington for a 2-day school. That's the 23rd and 24th, or 24th and 25th of February. And then the first weekend in March will be a 1-day advanced school in the Grand Rapids area. So we've got those 2 schools coming up.
Do you have any gut feelings on what's kind of luring some of those new people to the sport? I that's always, obviously it's our business to, sell products, right? But that's always something I'm really curious about is like, if I'm an angler, what's drawing me to Great Lakes fishing, or what's driving people to, because it's not an insignificant commitment as far as that goes. I mean, any thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, well, I think, with the king fishing coming back, I mean, we all want to catch fish, but the king is the money fish, to go out and have an opportunity to catch a 20, 25, or even 30-pound fish that's going to rip 100 yards or more of line off fill. That's exciting. And so I think with the resurgence of kings, a lot of people want to get in on that. And I always encourage people getting into it, start in the spring, because as you said, Trevor, it's not cheap to rig a boat and chase fish all season.
Yeah.
But the spring, you can go out there really with your bass and walleye tackle and a limited selection in shallow water, and you can do really good. And so I think more and more people are starting there. They get some success. They eat those cohos. And then they go, yeah, this is fun. I want to do more. And so you just, I tell people just gradually ease into it. You don't have to go out and buy everything you need for the first trip, because you will be overwhelmed if you do.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the, cost of boats and things like that. I mean, but the reality is, the equipment is so good now. I mean, your 18-foot trailerable aluminum boat, if you're being smart and watching the weather and respecting the lake, it makes for a really pleasant day with a lot of, with probably a lot of the equipment that you already have. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I know guys with trailer boats have been catching browns and lake trout all winter. I mean, and so, there hasn't been a lot of ice fishing. So would you rather, sit at home or go catch a brown or a lake trout, so there's options out there for people who, want to fish.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's, we sell Fish Hawk, and we're selling stuff to people that I would consider more advanced in the sport. But I think what's really cool, especially in the spring with those brown trout, you can just go out and flatline and catch fish. And that's something that, like you said, if you've got a few rod holders on the side of your boat, you can do it.
Yeah. And
so I think
cohos, when the cohos are there, they're not the hardest fish in the world to catch.
Right.
Yeah, so that's just an awesome way to get started. And if you're someone who's watching this or listening to this on a podcast later on, and you're thinking about getting into this, I mean, yeah, we want you to buy a Fish Hawk, but if you're just getting started, go out and run some flat lines, especially this time, spring season, you can be successful doing it without a whole bunch of equipment. What other kind of advice are you giving these people that are coming to your seminars that are like brand new getting into it?
The brand new ones are great because they don't have any bad habits. So, I tell them there's a learning curve. So don't get frustrated. You're going to put your time in. I know the first year my dad and I fished, we didn't catch a fish. We went out like 6 or 7 times in a small boat, never caught a fish, 1972. So there's a learning curve, but pay attention. It's the small details that matter. And then I also try, when people are ready, I try to teach them about the currents and how the water flows and moves, because really, these fish move around during the season. They go up and down in the water column, and they go in and out from the shore and move a lot. Like Lake Michigan, they go north and south a lot. Lake Huron is, aligned east to west. So those fish are going to move a little bit differently, and the currents are going to be different there. But I tell people, if the more you can understand about the environment of the fish, the water, how it stratifies when it warms up, how the currents change. Every time the wind switches direction, the currents are going to change. The fish will do the same thing year after year, month after month. They may be further out into the lake or closer, but if you pay attention to the details and learn, understand the lake, you can figure out how these fish move. And then you're golden. Then you'll be able to find them. And then as far as the lines and stuff, it's not that a guy has to own every single lure and flasher out there. I mean, like when you come to our schools, I'm not going to give you a list of lures to buy. And I mean, I have no logos on my shirts, so I'm not like trying to sell you something that I make or someone's, wants me to endorse. I'm going to tell you what works, but more importantly, I'm going to teach you how to look at the water, look at the lake and the weather, and kind of read it all and read the fish, and then make the decision for the circumstances on that day in that season that will work best. And that's really the key.
Yeah, I was really blown away. I went down there and fished it out of Winthrop Harbor last summer. And you have some really, really massive current breaks in your area down there. Like, I was blown away at just how fast and how many different current breaks that you had just outside of Winthrop Harbor. And it was, like I said, just amazing. I think one of the things that people are getting started in it, they don't see that and understand how that works, but your fish down there are really keying on those current breaks as structured, the way a river fisherman would go out and target a rock hump or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Lake Michigan, the water is moving. The water is constantly moving. And so the more we understand about that, and it seems intimidating, but it's once you get a hang of it, it's really not that hard to understand.
So I have maybe this is the flip side of your question, but whether it's somebody that's new to the sport, Dan, or even a veteran, is there any like pet peeve you have or something you see a repeated mistake that it's like, gosh.
He said bad habits earlier.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah, what's your number one bad habit that you observe after doing this for so long?
Oh, so it's okay. Can I have two bad habits?
Sure.
Yes.
I like bad. Well, I don't like bad habits, but I'd like to know about them. How's that?
No, I don't want two bad habits.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
But I would say it's number one is when you set up, whether it's the morning or afternoon, you just put whether your 6 rods or your 20 rods in the water, and you sit down and you don't change anything. You just wait and you just drive and you just randomly go around changing nothing, which is great. I mean, it's relaxing, and if that's what you need to decompress, that's the best thing in the world. But if you want to catch fish, you got to work. You got to work your rigs, and then the other one would be to not pay attention to the angle and the speed when you're trolling, because a lot of times it's that, and we go in depth at our advanced school on this. And also my salmon coaching, I work with guys. This is a really big one that I've done this with a lot of guys on Lake Michigan, Huron, and Ontario. And once they start paying attention to that whole speed and angle thing, their catch rate just goes way up and their tangles go down. So that's probably the biggest pet peeve, not paying attention to that one.
And when you're working with some of these new folks that are out there, or maybe even just intermediate, you talked about tangles. I think that's one of the things that people really worry about the most is managing lines and making sure they're not getting, bird's nests and all kinds of messes in the back of their boat. What's some advice that you can give some people just when it comes to line management and just making sure that your day on the water is not filled with frustration?
Sometimes less is more. There were some guys who did really good in Michigan's tournaments last year. And my understanding is they weren't even running all 9 of their rods, because the way they were fishing, how they were fishing, less was more. So sometimes running less rods, you'll catch a lot more fish than trying to run all of them, because you're not managing all those rods.
So we just got a question come in on Facebook here. Just wanted some clarification, I guess, a little bit more when you said, what do you mean by angle and watching the angle?
Oh, yeah. So this book right here will answer all those questions. No, I'm kidding. It isn't big water wisdom on that. But so your angle is, it's the direction you're moving over the bottom of the lake. So it's not the direction your compass says you're going. Your compass will show you where your bow of your boat is pointed. It's the angle that your boat is moving is measured by your GPS over the bottom of the lake, whether it's a 90-degree angle, a 120 angle, or a 150 angle. So that's the angle that we're watching, which it's trying to find the magic line that those fish want. That's 101. But then also you match that with your speed over ground on your GPS. And then, that's like 201. And then you can then start taking your data from your Fishhawk probe that's 90 feet down and working that into that puzzle, and you can figure out the entire current with that. So that's the short answer to a very big question.
Yeah, you cut me off because you held up the book, and I was just getting ready to give you a plug for the book. You had sent me a copy of the book when you first published that one with the questions, and it's like a playbook. I mean, it's like everything you want to know in one spot, and I know that came from a lot of years on your side, but it really is a great read because it's a fast one. You can pick it up all the time, and it's something you can actually read in the boat because the way it's formatted it's just a really kind of it's like Dan Keating's Cliff Notes,
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, it was. We ask questions. So the book is organized by questions that we would all ask. And then there are categories, currents, equipment, lures, species, So it's kind of categorical, but then you can find the question. And a lot of guys tell me they keep it in the bathroom.
That's what's great about it is because there's just little short.
Yeah, it's just chunk. It's just digest. I mean, and we see that with podcasts and stuff. It's like the more digestible you can make your content, the more people really want that. So
Yeah.
Dan, why don't you go ahead and show people your books and let people know where they can find them?
What's that?
Go ahead and show us your books and let people know where they can find them.
Oh, okay. So yeah, all of my books, you can find them on Amazon, but I would prefer if you get them on my website, CaptainDanKeating.com. But there's two videos. There's two videos on king fishing, and then there's a very basic book, The Complete Troller's Guide, which if you're just starting out, no, it's that one. That's the one to start with. Then there's the brown book, Keating on Kings, which is just about kings. And then there's the two most complicated books, which would be Essential Tactics and Seasonal Strategies and Big Water Wisdom. Big Water is the newest book. And then there's Angling Life, which is more about life than fishing. But CaptainDanKeating.com has all of them there. Or if you're coming to one of my salmon schools, you can get them at the salmon schools.
I just noticed on the covers, it's like you know the order they were published in because you can kind of gauge your hairline, right? I mean, it's like we're all getting there, but I've noticed I'm like, hey, that's a young Dan Keating. He's a pretty sharp looking dude.
Trevor, come on, you got like a full head of hair there, so come on, go easy.
But I can put this over, and it's like it. Chris wears a hat for a reason. I got a pretty shiny spot here, and it's getting pretty thin. So.
Oh, it's been, hey, the last 2 years has been brutal on the. It's just been brutal on the hair.
Well, hey, we're doing okay. We're plugging away. So.
Very good. Dan Keating, really appreciate you taking time out and joining us. It's always really fun.
Hey, thanks for all you guys do with the helping guys catch fish and also with just educating people across this fishery. So we appreciate that too.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, take care.
Dan Keating. And we got our next guest. He's hanging out here right in front of our booth. We can take the headphones off. But another guy that just the legends of the sport today. I'm excited about this show we've got today. A lot of really good names and big names coming in here to talk with us. He is Captain Matt Yablonsky.
Hey.
Powis is over there slowing him down.
Yeah.
We'll be over here in a second. If you've seen on the comments right now, everybody, you can go ahead and drop hashtag FishHawk Electronics into the comments. And if you do it several times, you're only going to get one entry.
Yeah,
fancy. Doesn't matter how many times.
Upgraded.
We'll give you an opportunity to win a FishHawk swag bag with just a bunch of FishHawk swag with some stickers and maybe a shirt or a hat or something like that in there as well. So go ahead and drop hashtag FishHawk Electronics into the comments, and we'll get you entered. We'll be drawing at the end of the show. But Captain Matt Yablonsky,
Chris,
welcome,
fun, buddy.
Great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So what do you think so far early on here at the Greater Niagara Fishing Expo? How's the show been?
I just had a chance to walk around a little bit. There's a lot of new faces, a lot of new products. It's probably one of the better shows I've ever been to.
Yeah, it's happening here right now.
Boats, we've got you name it.
Well, I mean, think about it, and I should know this, but I don't. How many years has this one been? How many years has this one been coming on?
It's been a while. It's probably been since like 2016.
So we're closing in on 10 years.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the one thing I noticed today was the progression of the show, right? So it started out as literally tables, and there wasn't, booths, everything wasn't curtained off and whatever. Where it's like it's really turned into a really professional, well-run show, and that's credit to Joe and lots of staff. The visitors bureau here has done a nice job, and it's just. It's come a long way.
It's turned into one of the best consumer shows that there is. There's products from every manufacturer here, different tackle shops that are local, bringing tackle in, making sales. A lot of guys that are just making their own products.
Yeah, a lot of custom.
Yeah, a lot of custom stuff.
Garage grown stuff.
That you just
fun.
You can buy fishing lures over the internet. Yeah. But unless you touch them and feel them and see them and see really, this is a little different. I need it, and this is a place to showcase it because you can pick them up and touch them, and a lot of new faces here. So
yeah,
So we flew down from Minnesota, in our neck of the woods. We've got all of these customized fishing jigs. Like, it's a big deal, and really the big manufacturers, there are a few of them, but it's really is turned into a custom game.
Oh, sure.
Is that something you're seeing here on the salmon front too, where there's a lot of new custom people coming in and just a lot more variety?
Oh yeah, definitely a lot of variety. Guys that are doing their own meat rigs, and guys doing their own meat heads, and guys flies, and you see everybody's painting spoons, and it's really kind of a fun time to be in the tackle business. I'm just a charter captain. I just fish, so
Yeah.
I don't get into painting spoons and stuff, but I like to look at them and help those guys out. See some new stuff that they want me to try out. I'll put them in the water and let them know how it works.
Well, what do you see with that when you're going out there with these new colors and just new designs? Do you think the fish are like, hey, that's something new? Or what do you think's happening with that?
You want my honest opinion?
Yes.
Tell stories.
No, give me your honest opinion.
I try the new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an old school guy.
Mhm.
Might be technically one of the younger captains around, but I'm an old school guy. I run a lot of silver streaks, green alewife, nothing but a silverback spoon with white, little green, and a little black. Put that in the water every day and it catches fish. So I got my staples that go down. I put the new stuff out and I challenge it. If it can catch just as many fish as Old Faithful, then it'll go in the spread. If it's a little slow, it might be a high sun specific, might be a low sun specific, but I always challenge them against Old Faithful.
Yeah.
And I run some streaks. I run green skirt. Green skirt catches me fish every day, all day long. So the newer colors, they do work, but
How do you keep it straight? Like, that's one thing I know, even with my own tackle. It's like I have a hard enough time remembering what I had for breakfast, let alone what time, let alone what spoon worked on a sunny day when the wind was out of the east a week ago, right? So I mean, do you have any tricks for that, or do you write stuff down? I mean, what do you do?
well, if it's something I want to try, I put it on my dash face up right in front of me so that I remember to put in the water. Because if not, the Old Faithfuls go in and I don't, you don't get to try the new stuff. But I put them out there, and on my dash, I've got a set where I've got my glow spoons, I've got my high sun spoons, and I got new stuff. So I've got them right in front of the boat. As I'm driving, I'm looking at them. So the ones that are belly up are Old Faithful. The ones that are face up are the newer ones I want to try, so I can see them. The other ones I know what they are.
So if you walk by now, Yablonsky's boat. You gotta try to figure out the ones that are belly, the ones that are really with the backs up. You gotta try to figure out those out.
Once you belly up, nobody gets to see.
Right.
Face up are the ones that let people see.
I get it. Okay.
But if I don't, because you get into a routine, you get into a pattern, and every morning the same stuff goes out, but I do want to try the new stuff because a lot of it will catch fish just as good as the old stuff. So I put them there face up right in front of me, and I throw them in the water whenever, when the bite's hot, because, when there's no bite, it doesn't matter what you put in the water, it's not going to work. So you got to wait till there's a hot light, throw the new stuff in, and so how she runs.
All right, well, Captain Dan Keating just said, one of his things is, not trying enough and not going. So if you're on a tough bite, are you gonna switch stuff up a lot? Or are you going to rely on Old Faithfuls, or are you gonna do both? You can do half and half, or what's your?
When the bite's tough, it's my regular spread.
It's your regular spread.
And
you don't change every 15 minutes or whatever. You're gonna run with what you do.
Yeah, I used to do that a lot. I had an area in the boat where if I took it off a rod, I'd hang it up. If it didn't work, I'd hang it up. You're gonna have a whole bunch of spoons on that little area at the end of the day. And then at the end of the day, what's on my rods when I put the rods away, all those Old Faithful spoons, that green skirt, that the green alewife, black chili willy. So when it's tough bite, I just let them in there because I know they'll eat them. If you're trying new stuff when it's tough, if they don't eat it, then you say, it doesn't work. So I think you got to try your new stuff whenever the bite's hot.
This is a good question on size there, Chris, if you could pull that one.
Yeah.
Because this is one I always ask myself.
So Glenn Ganetsky chiming in, and we promoted we were going to talk about Niagara Bar, so I think we got some Niagara Bar coming in. Mag spoons. Glenn says, are mag spoons the norm for early May on the bar to mimic adult spawning bait? Should I run a mix of sizes? What do you think, mags or a mix?
I'll tell you what, I normally don't put a standard size spoon in the water until June. When I'm out there in March, April, May, they're all mag spoons. A couple reasons. Normally the water's got color. You know, our water coming out of the Niagara is green. It's got a lot of chalky color to it. So you want a bigger profile. You want more vibration. You want more color. By the time June gets around, the water warms up. It's starting to clear up, and you're starting to, you know, they'll see it better. But I run all mag spoons all spring long.
We got a couple other questions here. I think they were directed towards Captain Dan Keating, but I think you can definitely answer these.
Sure.
Here's one from Great Lakes Triller. He says, how does a current direction change or make your spread?
Current direction makes a difference, especially where I fish. My boat is docked 12 miles east of the Niagara River. So the closer I go to the west, the more current you're in. When you're going into the current, you've got to run slower. Your lines will pick up more, your longer lines, your divers. So it definitely changes the way you go. And when you're going with the current, if I'm trolling east, I've got to go a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there goes the fish hawk.
Right. Yeah.
Motion again.
Yeah.
When you're in the current, you've got to have that fish hawk down. Without it, you don't know what's going on. And when you get halfway from Wilson to the river to 6 Mile, the current changes. So you're going one direction, you're into the current. By the time you get to 6 Mile, there's a little back eddy, changes again. Those changes are hot spots, you know, and without knowing your down speed, that's what determines what you do with the current.
If you had never done this before, if you were brand new to this, I mean, just kind of knowing what you know, would you start out just pulling spoons, or would you mix in, you know, your rotators, what would you do if you were just starting? How would you do it?
Tips for a beginner would be just run spoons.
Just run spoons.
Spoons will catch fish at any speed. You know, if you're doing 1.6 mile an hour, that spoon's got a big lazy action, and a lot of times the bigger fish like that bigger, lazier action because it's slower. They don't have to chase it. But a spoon will also run to like 3.5, 3.6, 3.8. Flasher flies, meat rigs are way more speed sensitive. So if you run spoons, you can run your mag spoons, your standard spoons. You can run NKs, silver streaks, stream weavers, and they'll all run at any of those speeds. So you know, just for
that's what I think too. Just 'cause, I mean, like Chris said, I mean, obviously, yeah, we're in the business of selling fish hawks or whatever, but we're really in the business of you know, getting people exposed to the sport, and you know, by doing that, you know, we're going to get our fair share at some point in the future. I mean, that's our philosophy, but it just seems to me, because I mean, dirty secret, I don't get to fish as much as a lot of people do anymore, and want to do more, but like it just seems like I'm always fishing spoons because I'm not as dialed in as you guys are, and it's, you know, I can still catch enough fish to keep it interesting. It seems like.
Yeah, I definitely think spoons are the way to go, just to, you know, to increase your chances. And sometimes they don't want flasher flies. Sometimes they don't want meat. I think they always.
I mean, you just hear so much about meat and flasher fly, and then you hear about it where it's like spoons are kind of like the, you know, I just kind of think of them as like the old faithful, you know, standbys. You know?
They don't get enough press these days.
No.
If you have somebody who's been running spoons for a while and they're thinking about running a meat program, what kind of advice could you give them to get started in running some meat?
I would say kind of keep it simple. Don't get too fancy with, you know, the big fish paddles and the fancy colors. Colors that work good in the dirtier, you know, cloudy water, white on white, like white with glow and like a Mountain Dew, and just a basic, you know, green glow head. Don't get too fancy. You know, give them something that, you know, the steelhead will eat, the lake trout will eat, kings, the cohos. Just throw something down there that everything wants. You know, if you go too big, too gaudy, too this, you know, you might be missing fish. So, you know, my idea is just keep it simple.
And what do you use? Are you using herring, or what are you using for?
I use a lot of Dreamweaver ballyhoo.
Okay.
The ballyhoo, I can get sometimes 2, 3, 4 fish.
Tough.
It's really tough. I like the shape. I like the size of it. I do run some herring, but I'll cut my own. Just because I like smaller pieces, thinner pieces to kind of match the ballyhoo. But that ballyhoo's got a very distinct scent to it, and the fish really like it.
I got a pizza place in my hometown called the Ballyhoo.
Oh yeah,
and their pizza has a distinct scent to it as well.
I want
It's great stuff. I mean, it's like you can't get a pizza like that anywhere else. But you talk a little bit about that spin with the spoons. How does the motion work when you're running meat, and how speed sensitive can it be?
Well, I like to run just old school Rise Davis heads, and they're very tunable. A lot of the other heads in the market are very firm or stiff. You can't tune them. With those, I think if you have a smaller piece of meat, they rotate in a circle. I personally don't like that action. I think some guys do, but I don't. I like it when it kind of labors itself. It kind of rotates up slow, and then it kind of falls fast. Slow, fast. So every time I put a piece of meat in head, I put it in the water behind the boat, out of the current, out of the, like, depending on which motor I'm running, I put it on the non-motor side. So I can really see how that meat rolls. So I tune it. But I think tuning is very important. I like that labor, slow roll. And even if I'm running fast, I'll turn the bend right out of that head so that I can run them with my spoons at 3.2, 3.3. A lot of people think you have to run meat at 1.6, 1.8. But if you put it behind an 8-inch flasher instead of like a 12 or a fish paddle, like a spin doctor, they'll rotate with your spoons. Just take the bend out of it, and just let the meat give the flip.
Sure.
So, I tweak things a little bit. Yeah.
That's what makes you Captain Matt Yablonsky.
Well, I like to put people on fish. I want all of my customers to have a good experience. I want everybody to catch fish. So, and I'm pretty free with my information. If you want to know something, feel free to call me, text me. When I'm on the water, I get a lot of messenger messages from people, and I'll help you out.
Yeah.
I'm paranoid now, Chris. If anybody could message us as far as how our audio and stuff is doing now, that would be good.
Yeah, let us know how it's going. Here's another question. This one is from I think this is directed towards Captain Dan too, but he kind of left us. We had you coming in. I'm looking for it. But it was asking about king salmon in Lake Ontario going deep. Oh, here it is from Jim Lemon. Just saying, what do you think is causing the salmon to run so deep in the summer in Lake Ontario, or have they always been there?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question. Because on the west end of Lake Ontario, I don't find the salmon go that deep. Because our water has color. It has color all year long. So what we're doing is we're avoiding the clear water and looking for the colored water coming out of the Niagara River. Once you get into that colored water, typically, 80 to 100 feet is as deep as our fish go. And as you go to the east end of the lake, they don't have that color that we have. So it's more like Lake Michigan water where it's clear and blue, and the fish do go deeper. So I know my guys on the east end, they'll fish them down 120, 150, 180 feet. I typically keep my spread 80 to the surface. So I don't really have the direct answer to that question because my fish I see on our end of the lake don't really go that deep. I mean, they will, but I don't chase them there.
It seems like clarity is the most common answer we get to that question is water fairy is what it seems like.
Our food is up high because they're in that Niagara plume. The food's high. So the bait fish are all high. When I run over a school of bait, usually it's 30 to 60 feet. So the fish are, no more than 10 above it or 20 below it. On the east end, they don't have as much bait because the water's clear. Their bait goes deeper, their fish go deeper. So wherever the food's at is where you're going to find those fish. And that has a lot to do with the clarity of the water.
All right. Well, people did say the audio was good. Now it's not anymore. So again, fingers crossed.
We're trying.
We're trying. We got Captain Frank Campbell coming on here in just a moment, but anything you wanted to touch on that we didn't get a chance to ask you about today?
And I don't know. I know Lake Erie right now is 37 degrees. There's a lot of 40-degree water in Lake Ontario right now. If you look at the satellite maps, even the whole east end, central east end of the lake is 40 degrees. So I just think we've had a good growing season. We should have a lot of kings and a lot of big kings to catch this year.
All right, very good.
It's on its way.
People want to get a hold of you. Your website is getthenetwet.com. It's WetNet Charters.
Yes, it is.
Captain Matt Yablonsky, appreciate you giving us some of your time here today, and fun to have you on again as well.
Appreciate it. All right. Take it easy, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll get your mic from here.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll bring in
Frank Campbell. All right.
Let me know, boys.
Come on in.
Come on right over. Again, if you want to jump into that drawing, you can go ahead and comment with hashtag Fishhawk Electronics. If you've already done it once, you don't need to do it again. You'll just get entered in for the drawing one time. But we will have the drawing again tonight when we go back on the air at 5 o'clock Eastern with Captain Casey Frisco. So if you don't win this time, you'll have an opportunity to win again as we come back on the air a little bit later this evening. And Captain Frank Campbell,
Yes.
Good to have you on. We've been doing this for a while and I've yet to have you on the show.
I've been hiding.
You've been hiding?
No, they got me busy doing too many other things.
Yeah.
Your badge says show manager. What? Describe that to us.
They just wanted to push some stuff off on me, Joe did. I've taken over from Bill Hiltz for doing the outdoor promotions, and this was just part of it. We're trying to make the show a great show to attend, a good show to learn some stuff at and send people out. So,
I mean, we're an hour into it, but mission accomplished. So congratulations on that. You guys have done a great job. And we were commenting with Matt, and just, I can't remember the first year of the show, but to look at where the show was then versus where it is now, it's really, you guys, it's a big accomplishment for the organization, for sure.
yeah, I would say that, one of the things that we've been steadfast on is education, and people have, come to recognize that we are probably one of the leading shows when it comes to educating anglers. The nice thing is they go in, they take in these seminars, and these are really qualified people offering these seminars, number one. So they're coming out of there educated in different things, but then they are able to walk out on the floor and get those things. And I think that that's a real selling point for people attending.
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 seminars or more running at any one time. And I always tell people, some of the shows I go to, there's seminars, and you walk in there and there's 3 guys in the back of the room falling asleep during the seminar. But when you come here and you walk into the seminar room, they are full of people, and there's people with notebooks, and they're there to learn. And you guys really put on a show, and again, with a lot of great speakers, but testament to the people that are coming to the show, though, too. The people that are walking the door here, they're a different breed of people than what you see at a lot of shows, in that they want to learn. That's why they're here.
You get people that are hungry for knowledge. And it's funny because you get the beginner or the novice angler who really doesn't know a lot, who's, really looking to digest a lot of this. And then you get guys who have been doing it forever who just want that little tip to make them a little better fisherman. I mean, I've been running charters for 33 years in the Lower River, Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, and I get to sit in on little portions of these seminars sometimes, and I take away things. And I think that as an angler, you always want to evolve. You always want to just get that little thing that puts you over the top, or maybe you're having a tough day and you remember, I sat in that seminar and you want to know what the guy talked about this, and it works. So it's for everybody. It really, really is.
A little thing to put you over the top. We were talking the logo that you guys have this year. Redesigned the logo. It's really nice. It looks really nice.
Well, it does. And the organization that took over management of the facility is Destination Niagara, who I actually work in their office as the outdoor promotions guy. They do things top notch. No matter what it is, they're going to go over the top, and they're going to make sure customer service is part of it. And they want to make sure that people know that you're part of the show, that if people have questions, they can come up to you. So, kudos to that organization. They really do things top shelf, no matter what it is.
Yeah, the new website, the website got a facelift too, and it looks really nice. Really well done.
We have some great people that are very knowledgeable working there, and they know their stuff. And that's a testament to, the testament is how many people come here, not only visiting Niagara Falls during the summer, but also fishing. I mean, they give me a lot of leeway in what I do, and it shows. We just did an economic impact study here in Niagara County, and it produced, I think fishing was worth about $58.55 million last year to the county. It's significant. So, they're like, okay, we know it's big. The show's an opportunity for people to come and learn. And that's exactly what we want. We want people coming here, learning, and, going out there catching fish and coming back. If people have a good time, a positive experience, they're going to tell all these people they're going to come back. If they have a negative experience, they're going to tell those same people, and they're not going to come back. So,
You've got a reputation, as a captain, as a very accomplished multi-species angler, what would, how would you sell the area? Somebody that wants to come here and take a trip, or what would, what's your pitch? How do you get somebody here?
What I basically say is 100% the truth. I don't think you can find anywhere in freshwater that has the size, the diversity, and the numbers of fish that we have. From the Niagara River up to Lake Erie. Within a 30-mile radius of Niagara Falls, you have probably the best freshwater fishing in the world, I would say. For the diversity of species, you can go up to Lake Erie, do bass fishing, do walleye. If the winds aren't right, and you don't want to be down there, you're down on the lower river doing the same thing, catching fish. I mean, there's always something. So you go a lot of places and the wind's blowing, you got to sit in the hotel. It kind of stinks, right? Here, the wind's blowing, you're up on Lake Erie, you go to Lake Ontario. That's a good wind. Or you go to the Niagara River if the wind's too strong. I mean, there's always opportunities, and we do have a 12-month-a-year fishery here. So you have, all the salmonoids available, warm water, cold water, everything in the mix. I mean, being an accomplished angler here, quite honestly, the area makes it easier. It really does. I mean, Niagara is a lot of the other captains have told me, and Vince Paraleone said it a bunch of times. The Niagara River makes a lot of anglers look good, and it really does. I mean,
Hey, I need all the help I can get. So we ran into that on the airplane yesterday. So we were walking down the jet bridge, and somebody said, "Well, you can't fish in Niagara Falls." And then Chris made the comment. He's like, "You can fish a whole lot of things right around there. It's a pretty unique area."
Well, if you really think about it, I mean, that river is delivering nutrients out into the lake, and it just piles up the bait along the bar. I mean, the river's a great opportunity to, it's a food factory. It really is. From inside the river out on the bar. I mean, I've done it. You can make a living fishing just that area. Really, you can, and that's really unique. I mean, you can go other places and maybe they have good walleye fishing, or maybe they have good salmon fishing. They might even be slightly better than here. But when you put the whole package together, it's hard to say that there's a better fishery in the country. And it's bore out time and time again from the media people that we have here visit. They're like, man, I've never realized it was this good. Or you have people that have been coming here. That the study that I talked about, we've had 33% of the anglers that responded have been coming for 15 years or more. And 97% of the people that responded said they planned on fishing Niagara County again in the future. That's a testimony to not only the great fishing, but everything else that's entailed. So you can't just have great fishing and have that type of satisfaction. You have to have good restaurants, good attractions, good hotels, the availability to get gas. It's all here. It really is.
Yeah. And you said you could make a living fishing here. You've done that for a long time. Tell me a little bit about if someone's interested in coming here. Everybody wants to know, when should I book my trip? And the answer is anytime. But how do the seasonalities work as far as what you are typically targeting as the season kind of progresses?
So generally when people talk, or when people call and want information on fishing, first thing I ask them is, what are you looking to catch? What are you looking to target? And then we narrow things down. So we have a 12-month-a-year fishery here. We are looking from, now, which is a February timeframe. The river is shining. We have great steelhead fishing, brown trout fishing, lake trout fishing, and walleye. And that'll continue on until April. Usually around sometime in mid-April, the Lake Ontario will turn into turn 40 degrees in more places and stabilize, and we'll start seeing kings. So we transitioned from that to the kings, the cohos, more trolling. In the river, it's all drift fishing, jigging, things of that nature, rod and hand fishing. As we get into that April timeframe, we're starting to target kings. As it starts heating up and it gets towards 50 degrees, you're talking about probably some of the best king fishing in the country. Numbers are off the chart, size. We get 20-pound kings in the spring. It's hard to get 20-pound kings in the fall in some places. So we have that great spring fishery, and a lot of other things overlap during that time frame. You're talking about May when the water hits 50. The smallmouth fishery's on fire around here. The walleye season opens. You have great perch fishing. A lot of times it's pick your poison. What do you want to fish for? And if that's not going, there's something else. And as we get into June, then we start heading up into Lake Erie for some phenomenal walleye fishing. That migration starts hitting down here at the east end of the lake, and the walleye fishing gets good in addition to the smallmouth fishing. Hey, come back in July and August, it's some of the best salmon fishing again. Offshore steelhead, inshore browns, and then we go back into the rivers. The fish start returning to the rivers or staging, and we get some good action with bigger kings, browns, steelhead, cohos. The river's still good for walleye. After that, we go into the salmon fishery in the rivers, in the tributaries. We have 18 Mile Creek, we have 12 Mile Creek, we have a bunch of other smaller creeks up on Erie that the steelhead come back in. I mean, it's really, truly the whole package. It really isn't. And there's a lot of places that, people guide full time, but they don't really guide full time. They have off seasons.
Mhm.
Here, if you want to guide full time, you can do it and you can make a living at it. Or if you want to come fish, there's not a bad time. One thing that I would say is check the fishing report, which we update weekly at the Niagara Falls website. It's NiagaraFallsUSA.com. It is a fishing report every week, but we try to make sure that we say, hey, the wind looks like it's going to be big out of the west. The water's probably going to get dirty. I don't want people coming here having a bad experience. So you try to be
Some
truthful.
good fishing. You tell them it like it is, not what people want to hear necessarily.
I would much rather tell somebody, listen, hold off on your trip than come here and have a bad time.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things, you talked about these captains. Maybe it's not so good to be a charter captain here. I know a lot of these guys like taking a couple months off. You come here, you got to work all year round.
You want to know what? Yes. And I got to the point, towards the last, the end of that 33 years, and I'm still doing it, but not as often as I was. I got picky. I was like, I don't want to be out there when it's 10 degrees,
Yeah.
Not the younger guys. I'm going to call Matt.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you listening on the TV all the time? Can you say pen any in that?
We're doing a podcast.
What's that?
We're live.
Here right now.
Randy, I seen him at the bar earlier.
This is the fun thing about being live, and people just
We have security guards.
right. I talked about my next question I was going to ask you is, you've had this career of fishing here, and you've got 12 months and you've got all these species, but if there was one fishing trip that you could take in your area right here, and you're like, well, this is the one thing I want to do, what would it be?
Boy,
I think I know what you're going to say, but I want to see if I'm right.
All right.
well, I'm going to tell you that my favorite fishing is always whatever's coming next.
Mhm.
So I'm in steelhead mode. I'm in trout mode. I'm ready for the bass. I'm ready for the salmon. That being said, if I had to choose one fish, it would probably be bass.
Okay. That was like, I thought you were going to throw me a curveball. I'm like, I know you as a pretty accomplished bass hand.
I like the bass fish. I mean, it's great here. It's really an undervalued part of the fishery, just because we have the big brother Lake Erie right there. We catch a lot of 5
So
pound
you're
smallmouth.
talking Lake Ontario bass.
Oh yeah, I like.
Oh,
I
really?
Like
See, I thought you were talking like Erie bass.
I do love Lake Erie bass, but I like bass fish in certain ways.
Okay.
I like throwing my
Interesting.
spinner baits. I like throwing stick baits.
Okay.
And the rivers, both upper and lower, are a little bit more conducive.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
So rather than the finesse fishing on Erie, you like a little more power fishing.
I mean, I do it. I
Yeah.
like to do it. There's certain times when it pays off better to
Yeah.
do it. But that being said, I mean, I enjoy bass.
the DEC booth is kind of over this way from us, and there's that. It must be I'm guessing it's the New York State record.
The old New York State record.
8.4 or something. I mean, that fish is just
Oh yeah.
ridiculous.
It's crazy because as you think things are slowing down a little bit, maybe we're not seeing the top end that we used to, and then a year will produce several 7-pounders. I know of fish that are actually been caught that have been bigger than that have been weighed in tournaments. They caught one during one of the Lake Erie tournaments here in the fall on the Canadian side, but the guy didn't want to come back and make it a New York State record. He caught it in New York. He was fishing a tournament out of Ontario, went back to Ontario, it weighed like 897 or something like that. So basically 9 pounds, but he didn't want to certify it as a state record. So he actually just said, I'm going to let it go. Which isn't
So it's
bad.
still out there, maybe.
Yeah, it is. I've seen some big bass over the years, and a lot of them we didn't weigh. That if these fish get a couple more years, they're going to be not that they weren't impressive.
Yeah,
they're going to be
they're-
crazy impressive.
Let's we got a couple questions coming in. One here from Jim Lemon, and thanks to Jim. Jim's always been. I think he's been watching since we first started doing this.
He's spent a lot of hours watching. So
Yeah, he's been around for a while. He says, "Any tips for fishing the Upper Niagara? I'm looking to learn it."
Yeah, it depends on what species you're looking for. I mean, the Upper Niagara River is noted for its warm water species. So smallmouth bass probably take center stage, but it also has a great musky fishery. What I would say is it's a certain time of the year fishery, and what I mean by that, it's the shoulder seasons. It's the early spring, early summer, good bass fishing. I catch a lot of fish on jerk baits, as a matter of fact. You're looking for areas that anything that breaks the current up there is a good thing, no matter what time of the year is, but especially in the spring.
This might be a silly question, just because I'm not from here. But when you reference the Upper Niagara, that means above the falls.
Above the falls,
Is that what that means?
yep.
Okay.
Above the falls, from Lake Erie to the falls itself. And you're not going to go over Niagara Falls. They won't let you.
Okay.
You can only get about
Good. I mean,
2 miles above the falls. It's a cutoff zone, and they will stop you. There's boats that have been, going, because there's a series of reefs up there,
Yeah.
which back in the day, I don't consider myself an old guy, but I'm really an old guy if you think about, they used to let us fish a lot closer.
oh, really?
And there's a couple of reefs up there that are dynamite fishing. And then you got some knuckleheads that are, hey, let's take a ride down to the rapids. And, they cut that off. But yeah, the upper river is great fishing. Smallmouth, I like throwing jerk baits up there early in the year, late in the year are good. I like to throw those spinner baits during the summer. And then the musky fishing, second to none. I mean, it really is.
That's
took
kind
a
of, that's
big
kind of
leap
been
out.
like a secret
Yeah.
for a while, hasn't it? Where it used to be like accidental, and now it seems like it's
Yeah,
guys are really
there's a lot of guys that target them up there. There's a big musky club here, and I would say a legitimate shot at a 50-incher in the fall. If you spend
Is that
time out
trolling
there,
or casting, Mark?
that's both.
both. Okay.
That's both. Yeah, you get. They run a lot of monster tubes. They run a lot of bigger, anything bigger, and there's some local
Rubber bait.
guides that'll run some live bait up there. That quick strike rig. They do quite well. I saw a bunch of big fish come out of the Upper River Harbor area last year to the tune of, wow, those are big fish.
Wow.
If you go in a barrel, they'll let you get closer to the fall.
Yeah.
Just try that.
Believe it or not, it's actually fairly shallow up there.
Yeah.
And there's been people that have done some dumb stuff with boats, with kayaks, and have gotten stuck. It's probably only 6, 8, 10 inches of water in some of the areas up there. So, yeah, I don't think the barrels are good.
not gonna get on that one.
Here's another question here. This one's on the show. Brian just wants to know approximately how many vendors are here at the show this year.
There are 182 booths that are filled, roughly about 110, 120 vendors.
Yeah.
It's a pure fishing show.
Yep.
So, there's not, you go to some shows and there's a lot of fill-ins, there's very,
A lot of
very,
beef jerky. A lot of beef jerky stands.
very, very little. I mean, you're
Yeah,
talking
That's true.
maybe 2 or 3 booths that aren't 100% fishing related.
Yeah. I'm
And
looking
that's one
around
thing
here.
that we pride ourselves in, the fact that we've made this a fishing show. It used to be known as the Greater Niagara Outdoor and Fishing Expo. We took off the outdoors because we didn't feel like we were doing it justice and just made it strictly fishing.
Yeah.
You're not gonna find a beef jerky guy or the guy selling a crossbow. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to touch on before we let you go?
No, I mean, if you want to become an educated angler, this is the opportunity, and I'm talking all different spectrums of the fishery, from trout and salmon to bass to walleye to kayak fishing. It has it all, and it's all included in that little $10 admission, or 4 days for $25. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah,
You really can't.
there's a reason that this is the only show that we do anymore, and that's because it's really stayed true to people that want to come here and learn. So.
Yeah. Well, I agree.
This is our people right here.
That's what I always say.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody, but it's for the right people that
Yeah.
want to be here. So.
Yeah.
Very good.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for
Thank
coming
you for
out
your
with us.
time.
Really appreciate it.
Yes. So your mic from you.
Yeah, I'll let you.
There we go. How did I do this? Oh, it's magnetic. Oh, there we go. There we go.
All right. Thank you, boys.
Thanks, Frank.
Captain Frank Campbell, and our next guest is hanging out here in the green room and ready to come on the air. And again, if you want to get in that drawing, it's just hashtag Fishhawk Electronics, and we're doing a giveaway for some Fishhawk garb, some stickers, and that kind of stuff. We'll get that sent out to you as soon as we
All
get
right, I'm
back.
gonna pinch you down here.
Oh, just
Home
here.
quarters.
Here, I'm take your glasses off. It's Powis is always maintenance.
Yes, I am.
You gotta maintain this.
Paul
He's high.
Powis.
He's high maintenance.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. That's it, right?
It's his age.
That's it.
You're getting a little soft there, Paul.
What's up? I got some moves going on. Yeah.
Take a picture of Paul getting excited. Oh, guys. Super Paul. All right, we got Paul's buddy here taking some pictures with us, but
He's my probation officer.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
keep an eye on
surprised
me.
they let you out of the country. Probably not gonna let you back. Yeah.
They were probably like
The stuff,
yes.
the stuff I bought today, yeah, they probably might not let me back in.
So Captain Paul Powis from you fish out of the Erio on Lake Erie, and we've had you on the show a couple times before.
I'm surprised you invited me back. Thank you.
Well, but this is in person now.
This is
Normally,
in person.
Well,
yeah.
It's the first time we've ever had you right
no,
now.
I was in person one time
Oh,
back
yeah.
in
that's when we did the room. Yeah.
pre-COVID when
Yeah.
we did the
Yeah.
room. We had the studio back
Yeah,
there.
that's right.
a long time
It
ago.
That was
is.
a long time ago.
I've been doing this a long time. It's my
Yeah.
35th year guiding on Lake Erie.
Man.
What have you learned in 35 years?
Never buy a charter boat. No. It's been great. Like I've had a really good ride. I'm keep trying to say that I'm going to be done soon, but I keep going back to it because that's what people like. And my customers, a lot of my customers are my friends now. So things I've learned, like the friendship and, what do you do for a living? Oh, I do windows and doors. Oh, really? Okay. And, just the network of people and the travel. And I was telling Trevor, I got into a lot more saltwater fishing now, and I've been fishing some marlin tournaments. And I actually left my boat for 2 weeks last year in the beginning of July, which is peak season. And I went marlin fishing and fished tournaments. So it's the things I've learned, like the fishery is it's so good now. And we had the good days back in the early 80s, and we had the better days in the late 80s and early 90s. And I tell everybody, the good old days are now. Like those populations on Erie are just, it's crazy. So you can fish them different ways. If you're, some guys are casters, other guys are trolling, and there's a million different ways to troll. You can troll with inline boards, big boards, dipsies. So a lot of our big lake, like Lake Ontario, Lake Michigan style trolling, it all works on Erie because there's so many walleyes and you can target. So the biggest challenge that we had last year is how to keep the small fish at bay, because we were catching so much. Like you had 50, 60 throwbacks on the charter.
How did you do that?
So, as you're Trevor, well aware, sorry, there's my tongue. We had a window there. We had so many steelhead mixed in. We got away from crankbaits because a steely on a crankbait, he gets the front hook in his mouth and the side hook in his head, and he goes through your whole spread and tangles everything up. So just to modify it and keep it simplified, I guess would be better word, is a hook with a spoon. That fish isn't going to wander. He's going to fight the way he's supposed to. When he's got a crankbait with 2 sets of hooks in his head and hits on outside board, it's just tangles. So we got away from it. And
That's a pro tip.
yeah.
That's a big pro
So
tip,
we switched. We narrowed it down to they're going to bite on spoons. So let's fish spoons for steelies and salmon, and the walleyes are biting them too. So we match the hatch with size of spoons as far as, when they're when they're biting on smaller baits, we use minis, and we'll go to mags, and if they're on alewife, whatever. But the one thing I discovered last year is I was taking a lot of my stick baits that I would use on Lake Ontario, and I'm running a lot of the yalleye stuff in the Moon Eye. It's a straight stick bait, very similar to a long knee bomber. The thing I like about it's only got 2 sets of hooks instead of 3, so you get a lot less net tangle. But I ran those off dipsies and jets and lead and riggers, everything that I would do spoons, and I switched to regular stick baits. And my catches were way bigger, and a lot of the fish are the size of the bait, so they're not going to hit it. You still get the odd one, but not as many. So we, and it's one thing to be out with clients and hey, these are good eaters, but when they catch 2.5, 3 pounders versus those cigars, the little hammer handles, it's just so much nicer to do that. So did that the last year, but the upside is all those dinks we threw back last year are all good edibles this year. And then that's the biggest thing that I've had to educate me and my partners and everybody else that's in the game. We've had to educate consumers. Those little ones are good to eat. Like that's a catch and eat fishery. People, I get all kinds of emails. I can't believe you're hanging all those carcasses. And the biggest thing to pass on to people that don't understand Erie is it's an anomaly in itself in the sense that you take Lake Erie is U.S. one side, Canada the other. And you're on the U.S. side, you got Michigan, Ohio, New York, and Pennsylvania. So 4 government agencies on the Lake Committee there. In Ontario, we have 1 government, and it's so you got 5 different government entities, but you would just assume nothing's going to get done. They all keep each other in check. So on our side, we get 25% as rod and reel anglers as the catchable harvestable quota, and the other 25 goes to commercial fishermen. So when I get over here, anybody finds out I'm from Canada, hey, what's going on with those commercial nets? They want to know about that. And I said, they're not the enemy. They're making a living and they're selling seafood, and that's what you buy in a restaurant or a seafood store. They do their thing, we do ours. But the biggest takeaway from all of that is every year they get their quota. And they say, hey, the rod and reel guys aren't getting their quota, up our quota. And they say, no, the rod and reel guys get their quota. But if you look at demographics and population on the Canadian side versus the U.S. side, we have little port towns that have population 300. Right. They're not Monroe, Michigan. They're not Ohio chain, the rest of it. So they've been keeping track 30 years. And in those 30 years, immeasurable is the amount of rod and reel fish that are caught towards our quota. So they allow us to catch, we don't have slot limit. We're allowed 6 fish as a possession limit. We're allowed to fish all year. They kind of open up the parameters of when they can fish just based on go get them. And every year it's immeasurable. So for us to go out and catch 30 walleyes in a 6-hour charter is not hard to do. And we do that regular, but people are taking them home and eating them. They're not putting them in their garden. So why not go out and have fun with your family? It's
a renewable resource.
It's a renewable resource.
It's funny because, I'm from Minnesota, Chris is from Wisconsin, and, we have a lot of angling pressure, and it's a very different situation in a lot of our lakes. But so to come over here, I mean, in Minnesota is, kind of known as the walleye state. Yep. I mean, it's hard for me to admit it, but I mean, the walleye fishing here is leaps and bounds beyond anything we've ever even had.
Yeah, and we don't have the population to put a dent in it. So, and I get, I release fish everywhere else. I go to Bay of Quinte, I let every fish go. And they're like, why would you let that go? I go, I got Lake Erie once. And it's the best of the best. And I actually believe it tastes better because of what they're eating versus other bodies of water. And it just makes a big difference. And I saw walleyes yesterday on sale for $17.99 a pound. That's Canadian money, so $1.50 US.
that's like 89 cents.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, there you go. But no, it's super popular, and I get a lot of families that bring mom and dad and all the kids, and they catch 5 limits of walleye to take home. That's enough walleye for them to eat for the whole year. And people are like, "You were just here 2 weeks ago." Yeah, we ate old fish. We need more, and they it's good for business. And it's fun. They're out, out enjoying the outdoors. And we had a big boom during COVID. Everybody wanted to go fishing, and we weren't allowed to. So now it's slowly getting back together. But no, it's been good. So
what do you see in there? That's really interesting that you brought that up. You had all these new charter customers come through during COVID. Are they coming back?
Yeah. So a lot of my clients, and I've always been different than a lot of the other guys, besides what you obviously know. But a lot of guys bought boats and didn't know how. So they wanted the educational side, and I've always catered to that with my seminars and the rest of it. So guys, I said, listen, don't complicate it. Get out there, put your riggers out, get a couple offshore planer boards, and run one aside. When you're comfortable with that, put out 2. When you're comfortable with that, add a dipsy. When you're comfortable with that, add a second dipsy. And more people. We're allowed 2 rods per angler. So I find they come back to learn new techniques. And the other thing, a lot of folks do the math on it, and they go, I have one client, he goes, I sold my boat. He says,
Cheaper to fish with you.
it's cheaper to fish with me. He says, I can go out with you 5 times what it costs me for insurance. So you take that into account, and then they don't have to tow the boat. They don't have to, if they want to go out for a restaurant or something after, they can have a few cocktails and not worry about all that. It's all taken care of. So it's one-stop shopping. So I have lost a bunch, but I've gained a bunch of new ones. So it all balances out. So I do a lot of corporate too, like the team building and incentives for, health and safety records, taking the guys fishing. I had a big construction.
Pretty good deal.
Yeah. I had a big construction crew last year. They were new to me, super organized, rented a bus to come down. I go, this is impressive. And they said, yeah, they took all the office guys wanted to go golfing. We don't golf. We want to go fishing. And they called me and we did a 5-boat trip, and very well run and organized. One of the things that the corporate guys do, and I found this to be ingenious, is he's handing out envelopes to everybody at the dock. That's weird. Never seen that before. So what's in the envelope? $50. I go, what's $50 for? He says, if they show up, they get their money back, but they get the day off work. And a lot of guys are, hey, it's a company corporate day. They pay them $50 into the pot. If they show up, they get their 50 back. If they don't show up, too bad, so sad, you took the day off. But so it's organized, and a lot of the like I got some guys that book me every Friday for the whole summer, and just to bring different clients out every week. So.
Let's get to that question in a second, Trevor. I want to ask a different question first, because you just talked about it there. But I did a salmon trip with a charter last summer.
Yeah.
And I mean, we came back. We had all the meat. The guy cut everything up for us. But when we got home, we put it in smaller packages. We vacuum sealed everything.
Yeah.
We had like over 50 pounds of fish there.
Yeah.
And I told him, like, you can't even go to the store and buy this meat for what we paid for this charter. So
and all that fun you had catching them is a bonus. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that if you, and again, we obviously make a living on people buying their own boats, but we also want to keep you guys employed and keep you guys going, because you're good customers too. But it's like, if you are thinking about doing it, like, a charter is a heck of a value right now.
It's you cut the learning curve. So I mean, and I've had tremendously good fortune to be able to fish with so many really good guys, and like, I don't get the hours that I want, but like, I've learned so much from those guys in a really condensed amount of time, where it's like, it's pretty. I mean, they're. I don't want to call you an athlete, but
he's got an under.
But you're almost an athlete.
I used to be. So one of the big things, and that's, I'm doing seminars in Toronto at the spring fishing show coming up, and the biggest question I get asked from clients that come on the boat is, why do you do that? So my whole thing is, this is what I do, and this is why I do it. So it breaks it, like, why do you put that tipsy in first and then you don't put this tipsy in? And I explain it to them by the numbers.
Yeah, there's a reason.
That's important. Yeah, everything there's a reason. Why do you use that kind of rubber band versus this? Because it's black and it's UV and it doesn't break from sitting out in the sun and getting wet. Why do you do this? Why do you? And there's, after 35 years, that list is long, and I don't know how long I'm going to remember it all. So I need to share as much of it as I can, and people love that. And like, talking about your brand, people are like, what's that torpedo thing do? And you explain it to them, they're like, really? That's what that does? No, I thought it was a fish attractor. I says, well, it sort of is, but it gives me intel to help me know what's going on down there, and I can make my modifications, so be it faster, slower, trolling east, west, or whatever. And they're blown away by that. And then they go out and get it, and then the next call is, how do I install it? And the next call is, how does it work? And which end do you attach to which? And I go, there's instructions in the box, but I get a lot of that.
So if you want to know how to install it, call Paul.
Yeah, call me. That's fine. I'll give you your number.
Yeah.
You talked about a progression a little while ago, though. You said, run one board on each side, see how that goes. You get that dialed in, go to 2, then go to dipsies. Is that kind of what you think is the way people should go about it, as far as if someone's out there and they're just starting, and
absolutely,
is that
it's
really
overwhelming? Like, it's so much information, and we take it for granted because we live the life. But for a guy just starting out, and like I see this with new boat sales, where somebody buys a boat, and then you got to tell your significant other, I need another 10 grand for electronics and rods and reels and baits, and they're like, what? You just bought a boat.
Yeah.
Well, this is the other part. So financially, it's a better way for them to learn. And then once you said, like you said, Chris, once you master, like running three boards, that's a big undertaking for people that can't steer a boat straight.
Right.
Learn to keep that thing straight, because you're just going to get trouble. And then I've heard it 1,000 times. Dip sea diver. I tried that once, didn't work. What happened? Tangle out. You let it out too fast. You got to let it out on the clicker. Why do you got to do that? Because if you're free spooled, it just goes down in spirals and it wraps around itself and it just tangles your stuff. Set it down under control. Okay. Put it in the rod holder. Don't touch it. Let the rod holder take it down. Put it on the clicker. It's enough tension to draw it into the spot. Just little subtleties that we take for granted because that's the way it is and that's the way we were taught. My way is not better than anybody else's, but certain boats fish different ways, and like the offshore stuff, everybody does their boards different. Some clip with a snapper clip, some do the OR19s on the front, others do the oranges. They mix them all up, but it works for that person. I show them how to do it, and you pick what works best for you.
All right. Well, we got a question here coming in from Great Lakes Troller on Facebook, and I can't wait to hear the answer to this one. Is it financially wise for a young fisherman to start a guide service in today's market?
Wow, that is a tough question.
That's a loaded question.
Because I don't want to be the one responsible for the life you're about to have. But, I had a real job. You guys know I worked law enforcement for 38 years, and I was fortunate enough to be able to fish and work. To make a living at it, you got to put a lot of days on the water. To make a living at it and feed children and sports and college and the rest of it, you got to be in the top 2% of the charter guides and captains that are out there. But if it's something you love and you're passionate about it, which I was, I found an avenue to have my habit and help other people help me pay for it.
I was going to make the repeated, the often repeated joke, how do you make $1 million in the fishing business? Start with 3.
Yeah,
right?
Start with 3.
That's not true, because the reality is, and I think it doesn't matter if you want to be a guide or have a fishing business, is if you're passionate about it, there is a way. But that being said, you definitely need that support network, right? Whether it's a spouse or
absolutely
another job, and it's going to take time. I mean, I think you have to take, regardless of what it is, I think you have to take that long view.
Absolutely.
And if there's a passion, there's a way, but
don't have illusions of grandeur that you're going to go on and make $1 million, because you're not.
Right.
And then second to that is it's a process. Like I get tons of young guys. Like I had a call here today from Google wanting me to increase my presence. I go, do you know how many charters I give away? I said, not to sound but a guy starting out getting those bookings is really tough. So, when we get guys in the marina that are new and they're coming into the game and they don't have the clientele or the time, but the other variable that's a big kick in the head's weather. So if you have a job,
you're a farmer.
It's like a farmer. Everything's about the weather. So at the end of the day, you have a real job that you took the weekend off to fish. It blows on the weekend. You're sitting home. You're not earning. So I was fortunate enough in my law enforcement job that I could pick up the phone to my boss and say, I need to cancel my vacation days for the next 2 days because it's windy. You need me? Yeah, come in. And I save my vacation days for other days. But, juggling that's tricky.
I think one thing, and I think the question was, for a young angler, I think that was how the question was phrased. But find a trade in addition to that. I mean, I know a lot of captains, and I'm not a captain, but I do know a lot of captains that they were an electrician, or they are an electrician, or they're a plumber, or they're an HVAC guy, or they hang drywall, or they do something in the trades where they're very skilled and they have that. I think of Pete Alex. Everybody knows Pete Alex as a great fisherman. Pete Alex is a great fisherman. He's also a great commercial roofing contractor. Not everybody knows that, right? So that's
you need a backup plan.
You need that backup plan, and you need that skill.
But back to the question, I would recommend a young fella just getting in it, start out as a mate with somebody, maybe work at a tackle store and get a feel of the industry. an upside of being in the guiding business and doing shows like this is you're interacting with people all the time.
Yeah.
And that's a
It's gonna
potential.
benefit your other business.
So you're doing a pro staff gig in a booth and answering questions. You're also giving the guy a business card to promote your charter business, that if he wants to come out and learn how to use that equipment on the boat, that's a real good hook for doing that stuff.
That was a great question.
Yeah. Here's another one here. This one's from Glenn. Glenn says he's a small boat guy trying to go to a third wire diver this spring in a 100 foot of water. What would be the depth separation from?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's more of a question for the salmon guys, because I don't run the wire.
Okay.
I run it. I run twos and ones and don't mix it up. I have other ways of getting to those fish without having to use wire. So I would hand that off to a more of a salmon, one of the salmon guys. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no,
That's not my forte.
no problem. Paul, anything you wanted to bring up before we let you go?
No, just I'm really excited about the new probe and the development that you put. Like I told everybody, the last one was incredible. And this company, credit to you, you just make it better all the time, and you didn't just slap something together and throw it out. How many years did you test it? How many?
Too many.
Too many.
He doesn't remember. It's
No, about 3, but I just laugh because I just, there's a cost of doing that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like,
but
yeah.
it's also a brand that
Yeah.
as an angler, everybody knows. You just didn't make this in your basement and put it up for sale the next day. Like, we know that, and we appreciate you doing that, and having this kind of equipment available to us definitely helps people catch fish.
That's the goal. I mean, if we can do that, then we're doing our job.
You're doing it, guys.
Well, Paul, appreciate you coming in.
Hey, always a
If you
pleasure.
want to find out more about Paul, you can go to his website.
Appreciate it.
JP Fish.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your show, and try to behave.
We'll do that. Always good to talk to Paul
Always.
Powis, and even better when he's here in person. It seemed like the time it just flew by there with you.
The whole afternoon is flying by, honestly.
Right.
So,
We've got one guest left here. We might actually have a surprise guest after Rob's done, but we got Captain Rob Westcott just kind of hanging out there and ready to pop on. And again, if you want to get involved in that drawing, you can. We're starting to kind of queue that up right now.
Vintage.
Let's pull that up.
that is vintage.
Looks like we got 23 entries in there right now. So if you still want to get in, looks like how many people do we have watching right now? 56 people. So if you want to get in, go ahead and drop in the comments hashtag Fishhawk Electronics, and you will get entered into that drawing for the Fishhawk swag package. But let's bring in Captain Rob Westcott right now. How you doing, my good man?
Gentlemen, how we doing?
I'm gonna get frisky with you. Hang a mic, all right?
Gotcha. Figured it was necessary.
There we go.
Will that magnet just hook right there?
There you go.
Oh, boy.
No,
maybe.
Might hook right here though.
Or will that be enough metal there?
Might not be enough.
We'll make it happen.
We'll figure it
We'll
out.
get it.
Some new technology here.
Well,
We upgraded.
we're trying to, we just
Last year,
just like a fisherman, we look at the things that we could improve on, and we try to do that when we come back here.
you
And
want to go here? Is that too
sometimes
close?
Might be
it
too
doesn't
close.
work 100% perfectly, but if it's better than it was, then that's a win.
I know last year I brought lots and lots of gremlins with me. So
Oh, you were a gremlin.
You were the gremlin guy?
That was me. So maybe I brought on all this new
Well,
technology.
The internet speed helps tremendously. So we
Yeah.
have the internet speed this year. So we eliminated a lot of the buffering. We got Chris a new computer. That was part of the
Yeah,
equation.
that helps.
Got some new mics. So
Yeah.
We like technology.
So, Rob, you are a busy gentleman here this weekend. Tell us about the salmon school. We had talked with Captain Frank Campbell earlier just about the seminars here, and those seminars are included with the admission. But what you guys are doing is a whole other deal.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of the focal point. It's kind of always been the focal point here is the salmon school. Myself, Captain Pete Alex, and Captain Casey Prisco have an all-day salmon school presentation to give on Saturday. Basically 8 hours of our secrets. So, or at least that's how we're going to portray it.
Mm-hmm.
hoping to be just an open book with guys. There is some Q&A per se. We actually have a meet and greet on Friday night. We have the salmon school all day Saturday, and then Sunday we have like an hour or two just open Q&A. Your questions didn't get answered on Saturday. Here's an opportunity for us to kind of do like a one-on-one and really lock those down. So, should be good.
Yeah, and that's something that we've been talking a lot today about people getting started, or maybe people that have been fishing multi-species that have decided to go to the big water. And this type of thing, what you guys are doing,
you'll
for
see
people like that,
You'll see a wide range of knowledge. You know what I mean? You get those guys. Maybe it's their first year. You know what I mean? And you might have a 20-year veteran that's in the crowd. You know what I mean? But I think no matter what, no matter who you are, how long you've been doing this, if you spent a day on somebody else's boat, you probably will learn something. You know what I mean? They're doing something that's different.
I think that's interesting for you guys too. I mean, just all you guys individually have so much knowledge, right? But the one thing that you see consistently is your ability to learn yourself too, right? So you're not doing. Yeah, you have a basic program that you follow, but
because we're all playing by the same rules.
You're all playing by the same rules, but at the same time, you're also open to new things, and everybody's wanting to know what's who's doing what, and
It's funny because actually sitting down with Casey and Pete, you realize like, how do you do that? Wait a minute, you do what? You know what I mean? So there's little things that maybe two of us are scratching our head as we look at Captain Pete going, how do you do things? You know what I mean? But it just shows you that we're all doing the same thing, but we might have a different way of going about it.
And the thing that I always, so my son is, he's a young man and trying to learn different things, and I'll send him videos all the time. I'm like, here's how to do this skill, here's how to do that skill, and sometimes he'll text me back and he'll be like, I just watched this thing, or maybe you sent this to me last year, and I'm like, well, where you were last year and where you are now, you'll receive that information differently. So maybe something that was over your head last year, now you understand better and you can learn that more.
Pick up on
just
it a little easier.
Even though it's the same thing that you've already seen, just with the things you've learned since then, you're going to learn that differently.
Well, at least he's not in the phase that he knows everything. So it's not to that point. Yeah.
Well,
it's coming.
Probably depends on the subject.
Yeah. He's becoming a large young man, but he's still smaller than Dad, so he still listens. But we wanted to bring you on, talk some summer salmon. I know a lot of the talk here this show will be about spring, just because people are thinking about it. But when it comes to summer salmon, what makes that special?
I would take that season over anything. I really kind of wish that was always the fishery. You know what I mean? That July period, I think I fish out of Bald Eagle Harbor, which is kind of it's still the western central basin of Lake Ontario, South Shore. But that midsummer when everything is kind of our summer peak, it's amazing. So I hate to use the term, it's kind of brainless. But fishing is just phenomenal. And, if I could pick a month to fish, I'd probably pick that July.
And is that a consistency thing? Yeah, weather, water temperature?
I think that one thing that helps is obviously weather. That's our rock solid time of the year for weather. So your lake conditions are obviously a little kinder to you. It might actually get a little too hot out there, but you don't have to deal with atrocious weather. So that certainly comes into play. But yeah, I think when the lake really just sets up, the fish are there. We tend to have a large population of salmon on the western basin at that time of year. Fishing's phenomenal. Like I said, at times it can be a little brainless, but it's nice. You know what I mean? It's nice to go out there and enjoy success. Those fish are at their peak size too. You get in that late July, early August. Those are the biggest fish that we're going to see in the season.
Right.
So that's also a nice
mean then, right?
Yeah,
they get kind of bad attitudes and
and I think they're probably in the best conditions to fight too. If you think of like the prize fighter, that's the specimen you want. You don't want him, when he starts getting darkening up and thinking of making that mature spawning run. You want them still silver and angry and
kind of got that Rob Westcott vibe going on. Badass.
I like it. So yeah, I mean that's the time of year that I love chasing salmon that time of year, and I'm sure everybody would agree that July West End, great place to be.
You talk about it being brainless. What does your program look like that time of year?
I love running meat, so we run a lot of cut bait that time of year. If we're king fishing, I would say at least 75% of what we have in the water is cut bait. We do hang some spoons here and there, and they, some days they prove themselves, but it's a heavy flasher meat program. We're looking for big fish. We're, that time of year you're fishing a little deeper in the water column, 50, maybe 50 to 100 down. So those big flashers and a lot of meat in the water. They put a lot of fish in the boat that time of year for us. And that's on, downriggers, on divers. Like a typical 8-rod spread might be, I run 3 downriggers. So we would fish hawk on the center rigger. That's going to be my deeper rigger. We're going to have meat on that. My 2 outriggers, 1 and 3 as we label them. We probably hang spoons on those. 2 divers, 1 on each side, meat on those. And then coppers across the board.
Meat on all your coppers?
You meat on all the coppers. Sometimes we like to sneak a spoon in there. Depending on what we're seeing with the riggers, we might sneak a short copper way out of the, way out of that water column that we think that we need to be in.
Mm-hmm.
High, warm
Tail
water
type thing, way out there, so.
and it's just kind of, but we're getting bites there. You're seeing bites on like cheaters off of spoons. So we might fish we might be fishing 300, 400, 500 coppers, but all of a sudden we start seeing bites on those 150 coppers. And I get that question a lot with coppers, like, what's your best copper? Like, I need to buy my first copper. What should I buy? And I tell everybody my best coppers throughout the year are 150 coppers, and everybody's like, really? Yeah, those are, you just put fish in the boat. So, but a lot of junk lines. So we tend to mix it up a lot with junk lines. But like I said, it's a heavy meat program. Certainly, and especially if we're in tournament mode, we're looking for size and not just numbers. So.
Very good. We got a couple questions coming in right now. We'll get to this one here from Justin first. Justin, just looking. Can you talk a little bit about scum lines and current breaks and how to fish those?
So I wouldn't say that scum lines would really come into play, but certainly currents. We tend to push. If you fish near shore, you're going to see the majority of your currents going to be basically bouncing off the shoreline. The farther away from basically the shoreline you get, the lake is a little bit more. What's what I'm looking for?
Consistent, maybe.
Yeah,
predictable.
Yeah. And so I mean, we do fish in the terms of using breaks. It's more of a down break. Basically, with the fish hawk, we can find out where temperature changes are, and we tend to try to find those lines, because in reality, structure for these fish is based on temperature. So in the world of bass fishing, every dock has got a bass under it. But if we have consistent temperatures, it's tougher to find fish. When we find those strange down breaks is where we really separate things. So that creates a structure out there that fish can relate to. And it might be in 400 foot of water. It could be in 500 foot of water. It could be in 200 foot of water. But, I like to concentrate on those down breaks is a good way to find fish and bait. It's a change in the water, column, something different for them to look at. And they tend to, peg onto that, so.
Yeah, it's something that I see and I hear from a lot of kind of beginning anglers. They almost see those current breaks as sort of an obstacle, but really what they are is, that's what's holding your fish. They're using those current breaks the way that river fish would use a rock pile.
Yep.
I think also it's like, until you have success doing that, there's always that question mark in your mind. Am I doing this right? You're in 300 feet of water, and it's like, geez, it's needle in a haystack type thing. So until you start having some success there, where you develop that confidence.
I think electronics tell you a lot. You know what I mean? And I think it's really important to use electronics to kind of differentiate the water column. Sometimes it's nice to find those areas, those down breaks, find those areas, just knowing that they exist. And then from there, although you might not catch a fish when you're directly on it, once you find it, you know where it is. So maybe the fish are on the outside of it. Maybe they're using that down break as kind of a fence. Like we're not going any inside of this line. Maybe the fish are on the outside. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe they hit that line and that's the outside. So we kind of relate to that, and we might kind of snake around and really.
Yeah, I think half the battle is just find out where fish aren't. I mean, there's so much water out here. I mean,
It really is.
It's it's like fishing an ocean. It's like, well, where aren't the fish going to be? And if you can at least take those away, that's a good place to start.
I like hunting water. I would say it's a kind of a strange thing to enjoy on the lake, but that elimination of water, learning what the lake's doing, and it seems like I always say like the more you think you know, the less you probably do. So you could have fished 5 days in a row, think you got the lake all figured out. You show up on that 6th day and you realize like the lake has changed. But at the end of the day, you kind of can look back and reflect like, all right, hey, we looked for fish here, we looked for fish there. Our sweet spot was, here. You know what I mean? And you can kind of, obviously it's in hindsight, but that idea of hunting water, and eliminating water, I get some kind of weird enjoyment out of that, like learning the lake,
Well, that leads pretty well to this question here from Great Lakes Troller. Says it's midsummer, sun is high. Are you fishing the blue zone, 300 plus? Are you searching for that 48 to 50 degree temperatures?
Not even a question. I'm in blue zone. Shallow water. I like that. Is he saying foot of what? 48 to 50?
I think he's saying degrees there. Yeah, it looks like degrees.
So definitely offshore. Certainly in high sun. Love that, early morning start in shallow water. But certainly with high sun, as you get that time of year, we make the push offshore. Fishes stay more active that time of year. Middle of summer, I'm going to settle my center rigger with my probe, 45, 46, probably somewhere in the mid 40s. And we're probably going to fish up from there. We'll obviously make our adjustments, once we start getting bites. But it's going to certainly be an offshore thing for us.
Are you a when in doubt troll out guy, or
without it? Not even a question.
Okay.
So yeah, it tends to always have some fish in, let's say, that 100 foot of water.
But they might not be catchable.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I just have a little bit more confidence that if we slide out, then those fish offshore stay active a little bit longer all day. Those fish inside, it's almost like they want to kind of take a nap, and they're there. They just, for some reason, they're stubborn. They don't want to leave them. They get a little lazy.
Well, they get beat on too. I mean, they get a bunch of boat traffic on you. Yeah.
So you slide out, start sliding offshore. And it seems like if you run out there first thing in the morning, if you don't start shallow in the morning, you just make that run first thing, it's a slower bite to start. So we have a tendency to start shallow, kind of work that ground. Maybe there's that early bite in there, and then as the day progresses, once that shuts down, we're pointing it north.
All right. Question about the meat. What are you using for meat?
Rig cut bait. So it's all Pacific herring. Everything is filleted, and that's the way to go. I mean, I think that the best bait that we have certainly is Pacific herring. So it's got a great shine to it. It's got a great natural look.
Okay.
Holds up well in the lake. So we do mix in some brines, some colors. I got my homemade recipes. We play a little bit with colors, blues and greens, glow, that sort of thing.
All right. And then Trad also wants to know, what leader lengths do you run?
Varies. I guess it depends on what we're talking. So my divers, so I just do arm's length. So I do 2 arm's lengths, which is an approximation of, let's say, 12 feet on my divers. On all of my junk lines, all my coppers, I have a 36-foot leader, which is literally 6 arm lengths. So it's probably a little bit shorter than that. And then if we're talking leaders off down riggers, it really depends on what the bite is. So early in the morning, we keep them a little shorter. Fish seem to be attracted to boat noise. So you'll definitely see that early morning bite tends to be a little bit closer to the boat. As the sun comes up or just later in the day, they get a little bit shyer, and that's when your junk lines seem to perform. But so we'll start with 15 maybe off the ball. By the end of the day, we could be stretched out 25, 30, 35. Really depends where in the water column too. Certainly there is something to be said, where you are in the water column. If you're, shallow, fishing the top 30, you want a little bit longer leads. Once you get, 100 foot down, running those 15 to 25 foot leaders is more than enough.
Very good. Trevor, anything else for Rob?
When in doubt, troll out.
Yeah,
There you go.
exactly.
Well,
Success there.
thanks for stopping by, and have a great weekend with the school. You guys have something else going on, though. I think I heard that you just sold it out. You guys are doing another trolling school on the east side of the lake.
Yeah, so we obviously piggybacking off of our success with our sales here. Myself, the same lineup. Myself, Captain Casey, and Captain Pete are holding a Great Lakes trolling school on the east end of the lake. God, if I knew what the date was, I believe it's March 8th. Same kind of idea, except for one big difference. We're going to talk brown trout.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of split our time a little bit with that and talk some brown trout. So
that should be good for everybody signed up for that.
Yeah.
But if people want to find out more about Rob, go to your website,
That's it.
legacysportfishing.com, and you can book a charter with this guy too and learn what you can learn from him in the boat. So appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Still your mic.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Westcott.
Yeah.
We're going to do that drawing here pretty soon. So if you haven't had a chance to get in, now's the time to go ahead and put in that hashtag Fishhawk Electronics. But Trevor, we did get a couple of questions after we talked to you. There were some people, I think, just looking for just a little help visualizing how the slip deucer worked. I saw that come up a few times, and I know you touched on it a little bit, but you want to go through that again? I know you don't have one with you, but just how that works.
I have one buried in my bag somewhere, but so the slip deucer, it has a pin like a bobber, basically like a slip bobber that you could, you know what? I'll take the 20 seconds and dig it out. Yeah.
That was from Chris Olson. Again, thanks to everybody for joining us today. It was a great show. We're going to be right back on here at 5 o'clock Eastern, and that'll be with Captain Casey Prisco. Captain Prisco is going to co-host with me, so he'll be up at 5 o'clock. We've got some awesome guests lined up for that as well, but looks like you got that slip deucer ready to roll.
Yeah. So we'll just take the Velcro off here. Okay, so again, a little tough when you're not zooming in with the camera, but this is the slip deucer, and what this does is this will ride on any line. So whether that's a downrigger cable or what we set it up to do is initially when we developed the slip deucer, it was for people specifically
Who did not use downriggers, but still wanted access to fishhawk information. And that's what the slip deucer lets us do. So basically, we could create a poor man's downrigger or a portable downrigger out of a heavy weight. And when I say heavy, 1 to 3 pounds. You get if you get above 2 pounds, you're really better off getting a downrigger, right? But let's call it 1 to 2 pound weights. And they'll put that like on a short rod and reel. Maybe it might be the butt end of a 2-piece rod. And you put a line counter reel on there with like 50 or 80 pound super braid on there. And that's plenty strong to hold the weight of that weight and the fishhawk probe. And they're just using that like a downrigger. And what the slip deucer does is it rides on that line. And the beauty of it is because it rides on the line with the weight and the probe, the deucer is always pointing in the right direction. So you can get, you get great signal reception even regardless of how much blowback you have. And what it really is, simplifying it, is it's a portable transducer. It's a transducer that does not have to be attached to the back of the boat. But it's a way that if you don't use downriggers, it's a way that you can access fishhawk information. Repeatedly. And that's what the slip deucer does. So it is an option for somebody that doesn't want to use a downrigger. That being said, if you can run a downrigger because it just makes life very, very simple. Even if you're fishing in relatively shallow water, 50 feet or less, the downrigger does make your life easier.
All right, here's one more Fishhawk question. This is from Jack on Facebook. He says, if two captains are running Fishhawk probes side by side, can either boat pick up the other boat's readings?
You could. It's possible that you would see some weird readings in there, but it's very. I mean, you would have to be running really, really close for that to be, for that to happen. But theoretically, yeah, it's possible. But I don't think practically you're going to see that just from the standpoint that you'd be right on top of each other. Now, I have seen it like in marinas. I've seen it like if somebody has a probe down for some reason. I have seen it bounce around in there and things like that. But those are just kind of oddball situations.
All right. All right, let's rock and roll here. We're going to do this drawing. At 5 o'clock tonight, we'll have Captain Casey Prisco up, and Captain Casey will be at 5, and we've got Craig Sleeman coming on. We've got Captain Rick Hajecki. We got Joe Yeager, and we also have Captain Lance Valentine coming out this evening. So should be an awesome show this evening as well. I hope you guys enjoyed it this afternoon. Let's do this drawing. Looks like we got 31 entries. We're going to actually full screen this, and let's see what we end up with.
Oh, this is the cool drawing tool, isn't it?
This is the cool drawing tool. Let's see who our winner is. And Great Lakes Stroller, you are the winner on Facebook. So go ahead and give us a direct message on Facebook with your address, and we'll get that out to you. And I think Great Lakes Stroller was with us pretty much the entire show. So good to see Great Lakes Stroller get the win. But we'll see you at 5 o'clock with Captain Casey Prisco right over there in that seat. And should be a fun time. Thanks again to everybody for joining us this evening or this afternoon. We'll see you in a little bit.